Autobiography continues. I had just left Washington, Pennsylvania, a small town between Pittsburgh and Morgantown, where my second wife and I lived, because she went to West Virginia in Morgantown, and I did my internship at Chatham College, a women's college in Pittsburgh. So I get back to Arizona, and I went fairly early on a L.S.D. trip for the first time, and I wouldn't recommend it. In fact, I don't use caffeine, alcohol, any drug, because it just ends up blocking your direct experience. So there's so many other healthy ways to get to realizations about yourself, but I still wanted to be honest in sharing about my process. And during my first trip, which was in Sedona, a lot of tourists around and stuff too, it's the first time I got in touch with a gnome-like quality, observing people on a tour, and thinking it was interesting how they were fascinated with the names of everything, like the name of this mountain and the name of this little area, and just all the naming. Think about the human construct of naming things, because concurrently I had gotten in touch, I'd always been an atheist, and had gotten into some Taoism, but in terms of any concept of God, hadn't really had much connection with that concept. But I did, in my little notebook during that trip, talk about, or wrote about, society's God, this kind of evil, face, judgment and stuff like that, and then the natural God, which was just an energy that was integrated into the environment. And I also, importantly, the person I was with, I just wanted to keep my distance, because I think it was about myself and my internal experience. I remember, like, pounding on a rock, a big rock at the top of a hill, mountain, or whatever, and small mountain, large hill, and I was like, I can't believe I ever doubted myself. Like, I really got in touch with my self-doubt, which was something that in therapy during my second marriage, my therapist reflected back to me that it sounded like I doubted myself quite a bit. But I didn't really get it fully. And I still don't get it fully, but I got more in touch with it at that time. So ultimately, I tripped 3 times in a 6-day period or whatever, last time in Moab, Utah, and I realized I just wasn't going to figure everything out. How naive I was. This was a long time ago. And so, well over a decade, for 12, 13, I don't know, a long time ago. And so I had to accept I wasn't going to figure out everything in life. And of course not. I had so many experiences and so much work to do on myself at that time. But I kind of admitted that to myself after an attempt to really go deeply. I also began work as a therapist shortly afterwards. I had my Master of Counseling degree. And I didn't like the work. I had been used to counseling, like with my friends and that kind of thing, highly aware, motivated individuals, but worked with a lot of people that weren't motivated. It was like, I think, kind of like a county-funded thing or something, and some people were like required to go as part of like a jail thing, or jail release or whatever. So I worked with some really unmotivated people. There was some cool, people that I just really enjoyed working with, but overall, it was really draining, and I found in retrospect, when I look back on it, that I just was too sensitive to average maybe 6 hours a day or whatever of direct contact. It was a 55-minute hour and 5 minutes to urinate or take notes, and take notes all the time. And then you hope for people to cancel so you can catch up on the work. And the people I worked with were just, for the most part, pretty horrible. Like the other therapists, 2 other recent graduates like me, they were both cynical and cut down the clients behind their back a lot and just make fun of people, and just, it was they're very jaded, aloof, cynical people. And there was one therapist there who was good, She was a bit older, more mature than the rest of us, worked with a lot of people who've been through trauma, but she was kind of aloof and distant, didn't really share much. And I connected with one of the employees there. Actually, I had an affair with a married woman. It was like a good connection with the exception of she was in a very unhappy relationship and not willing to leave it, and just, you know, an affair could only fill you up so much. So that was kind of an interesting experience. I also hooked up with a couple other people that worked there and stuff too, and just same with the group home. I hooked up with a lot of people I worked with when I was there. These environments of like the group home felt like a family thing, you know, with kids around and stuff, so it's easy to go into different familial feelings. Are we mommy and daddy or whatever? And as a therapist too, you know, like tuning into people and understanding them, and just that feeling like a connection of contact and maybe intimacy, even if it's really not. So we met with our group of co-workers, met with the big honcho of all the outlets there of that. Probably this is around 9 months into it or so. There were some financial problems, and I asked him directly, you know, is there any danger of things getting closed down? And he said, no, we're just restructuring and blah, blah, blah. And one day an employee walks in, a co-worker, one of the cynical therapists, and is like, so how do you feel about a vacation? And I was like, sure. And I thought maybe there's some company vacation incentive or something like that. And, well, you're going to get one because we all just got fired. Apparently they called our receptionist. The receptionist told other people. We had an hour to clear out our office before they locked the doors. So everything that accumulated, plants or, you know, personal stuff, and all the work-related stuff that was my own, had to be cleared out real quickly, no time to process. It was intense. But it was actually a good thing, because I decided that it just wasn't working for me. In retrospect, you know, actually even at the time, my mom thought I was crazy because she was so work-identified. She thought she didn't understand my perspective that this is a good thing, this is going to be fine. So I didn't know what was going to be next, but I knew that that wasn't working for me because I just took in too much energy, would go home, like, smoke pot, take the phone off the ringer, listen, you know, turn the ringer off, like, listen to music, just try to cleanse myself of all this other people energy, which was just too much to take in, and I wasn't very good. Be careful when you're choosing a counselor. They're not all good. That's one thing I learned there, myself included. Don't doubt yourself. Tune into if somebody's working for you. In terms of, are they helpful? Is there a connection? But don't assume. Counselors have ego like everyone else, and especially young ones. Be very careful in terms of how helpful they're really going to be, because 2 years in a graduate program does not prepare you to be an enlightened healer, which is sometimes what people need. So I got hired back as a contract worker, and there was this interesting thing where I wasn't filling out my notes completely. So one of the people that worked in the office, this was at a different location, they basically got rid of our insurance and hired us back at a low rate, but I was just working part-time, and it was okay for me because I got to work less. But one of the women that worked in the office there, she wanted to confront me about not filling out my notes, because then they had problems on their end because of my laziness. And I showed her I was into Osho's and tarot, just had been getting into it. Oh, I'd read Conversations with God, which was a big part of my spiritual awakening, and shared that with her. She was into tarot. I invited her to get together, and we started seeing each other, and it was horrible. And it would become horrible. It was nice at first, but it would become horrible. And so I'll go into that relationship next time. Thanks for watching.